All right. So I want to say hello and welcome and thank everyone for being here. Idris and Joyce and Idris Sr., y'all and Danny, we're going to have a good old conversation about health and wealth and how you can't have one without the other. So if you're joining us, we'd love to hear from you, but we want to talk about something that impacts our families, especially in a big way. And that is life insurance, our own health, and how preparation can make a big difference. Now, we're not here to sell anybody any kind of policies today. This is about understanding why people get declined and what they can do before they apply or when they reapply after possibly being declined. So, Idris, before we even talk about insurance, why do people usually start thinking about life insurance in the first place?
Hey, to answer your question, people usually start thinking about life insurance for things like, let's say, family protection. They want to have that love or responsibility, for their family. They want to have peace of mind, in case anything was to happen, God forbid. And of course, to leave a little something behind, leave a little legacy behind for their future kids.
So, at the heart of it, it's not about this policy or this document. It's really about the people we love.
Yeah, so a lot of people are afraid to even apply because they think they'll be declined. How common is that fear? And it it's just justified. Some of the key things to keep in mind is like fear of being very common, or declines feels personal. How many times have you been declined for things and kind of took it personally? At the end. And most people, they don't understand why they were declined. So they don't even know why they got the decline reason, never got anything in the mail. And a decline, it doesn't mean that it can never happen. It just means that right now is not the appropriate time for it.
Okay. So, what surprises some of your clients when they get declined or they get rated at a higher price than what they expected to pay for their premiums?
Well, what I've learned or what I've experienced is that sometimes it comes down to things like, people will say, well, I feel fine. I feel great. I don't know why I was declined. Or they may say that, my doctor wasn't worried. So the doctor wasn't concerned about, their lab results or anything. It could be as simple as like, just getting the one-time reading, depending on where you are, if you take like something like your blood pressure that one time, that one number, one result is what gets documented, and it may not be very accurate. And then of course, there's things like, outdated labs, like maybe labs that they didn't even need to have happen or need to, take into consideration.
Okay, so this actually happens to good and responsible people all the time.
Yeah, and without going into insurance jargon, what are underwriters really looking for? Whenever you submit an application, it goes through the underwriting process. They're looking for things like risk patterns, like, are you at risk for having some kind of a medical event, in the future? Consistency over time, like, how have your lab results been, 4 years ago compared to now, to kind of predict what's going to happen in the next 4 years or so. And then, of course, like, getting control over time because, you may have had issues before, you're able to regulate it, but now, now you can move forward with a better result.
So it's actually less about what the numbers say now, and it's more about patterns.
Exactly. When we say pre-underwriting reset, what does that actually mean for the regular person? You know, um, when you think about it, it goes back to preparation, not delay. So being prepared for it, not putting it off to later, getting clarity, knowing exactly what needs to be done and not having to guess and hope. And then of course there's a strategy because anytime you want to make a change for something, especially change for the better, there has to be some kind of strategy behind what you're doing. So
Yeah, hoping ain't a plan.
it's not. So
So
this is
what we're talking about is getting informed before the application, not after you've gotten that disappointment and like what happened. But if you know what the numbers are, then there's no real surprises, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So why does the timing matter so much in the underwriting process?
Well, timing is key because things happen. You know, how many times have you gone to see, like let's say you went to see your medical professional for your annual visit and you had a case of what we call white coat syndrome. So as soon as you see the person come in with that white coat on, all of these fuzzy thoughts run through your head. You don't know what's going to happen and what if, or it might be this, or things like that. Or maybe you have a stress spikes. Maybe they take your blood pressure or temperature or something like that, and it has a strike because of it kind of spikes a little bit because of your stress level at the time. And then, of course, one day examination snapshot, one day you might go in for an examination, you can go in the very next day and have completely different, readings, depending on, how you're feeling that day, what was going on. And of course, real life versus exam day, every day you might feel fine, but like I said, on that day that you had that particular exam, all those fuzzy emotions come to you and anxiety comes to you and it could affect your readings.
Yeah, that means that that one moment in time actually might affect your whole future and your family's future as well. So why do the appeals and the re-applications, why do they fail more often than not?
Uh, this usually happens because there's no documented proof or control. So something may read a certain way, but there's no explanation behind why it's reading that way at that time.
Mm.
Like I said, you could do a blood pressure 2 or 3 times in a row and get 2 or 3 different readings. Um, and that's where Livalytics come in, where you guys come in.
Yeah, that's kind of what we do. So if you haven't heard of Livalytics, what we do is we kind of help you to understand that data that an underwriter might actually be looking at to reconsider your case. So we can help with the blood pressure trends, the weight numbers, the stability of your weight, the heart rate, the patterns, the behavior consistency, because we help you to document your numbers over time so that the stress spikes and the anxiety situations, they kind of fit into a norm that is creating the documentation that an underwriter can understand a lot better over time than that one time blood pressure number or that weight right after the holidays. So do people need perfect numbers to qualify for life insurance?
No, absolutely not. So what they really need is more documented over control over time. So let's say that you did have a quote unquote bad reading at that time that they show some improvement from that to when you get to your final result.
Okay. Now, when somebody gets approved or they improve their rating, what does that actually mean for their family?
Well, that's a great question because what it could mean for the family, it could be something as simple as income protection. Funeral costs. I don't know if anyone had the joy of preparing for a funeral, but those things get kind of pricey after a while. Mortgage security.
Stressful. Yeah.
Exactly. Mortgage security, because the number one reason why people file bankruptcy here in the US is because some major medical emergency happened that they weren't expecting. That could, affect your house, affect your home, affect your mortgage. And of course, generational impact, because if you have a major medical event happen that could be prevented, think of how much cost could go into just treating that medical event. That's taking away from what you could be leaving behind for your loved ones.
Absolutely. So this is really about protecting people when they're the most vulnerable. And to plan a funeral is stressful enough, but losing the house and losing the income, that's going to be a major impact to the family, definitely. So how does taking control of your health numbers also change how people show up for their families right now.
Oh yeah, another great question. Taking control right now could be, mean something as simple as having more energy, being more energetic throughout the day, having more persistence, when things happen or as you're going through your day or through your week, being able to, be more persistent with that. That longevity, over a period of time, longer period of time, being able to do the things that you do normally every day. And of course, having the confidence that you're able to, achieve all of these things. And one thing I want to throw in too is that, right now with it being tax season, before your tax refund even arrives, just take a moment to decide where at least a portion of it should be going when it comes to things like this. You don't have to put all of it into healthcare, but just save a little bit for just in case, because you never know what might happen later on.
Right, right. And I was in a conversation with someone the other day and they made a really important point because, you know, God's got a date for us and we sometimes we get called home and sometimes we take these preventable illnesses and we go home. So instead of taking that early route, we can create a little bit of longevity, or if not get a longer day, a longer time to live on this earth, at least be in better health, have a better level of energy and capability while we are here. So, who should really be paying attention to this conversation that we're having right now?
Well, this conversation is really mostly for people who were, previously declined. So they tried to apply for some kind of insurance before, but they were turned down for whatever reason. Or, people who were approved, the application went through, but it had a higher rating than what was discussed. I actually had a client last month that went through that situation there, and we're working to get that one straightened out. Or, people who to be told to like, wait a year. If you want to apply for insurance, but you were told to wait for a year, it could be because of something as simple as where your labs are right now. And then of course it goes back to your family history concerns. If you have a history of high blood pressure or pre or diabetes, things like that in your family history, then of course you want to be able to be more confident in that before you even submit that first application.
So, is it true, Idris, that if I have a number that's not right when I go to apply for my life insurance, that it could cost me maybe double what I could pay in a premium if I had good numbers?
Exactly. I want to throw in too when I mentioned that client last month. Not only did the number double, but we were also told that their basically what we call their premium, what they're going to be paying every month, is going to go up every year. So imagine being told that you're going to be paying twice of what you were expecting to, and it's going to continue to increase year after year.
Ooh. So over the life of that policy, that could cost them thousands of dollars.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, one number. Oh, that's scary. Okay, but that's good information, awareness. Now, is there a point where it's too late to improve your chances?
Um, what it comes that down to again is it all starts in the beginning process. So before you even send the application, just making sure that you, A, know what your lab levels are at the time. And if they are in a place where, what it shouldn't be, if they're kind of high or low, depending on the test, getting it to where it should be before initially sending the application.
Okay, so that's where Livalytics comes in, and we can help you to understand what those numbers are and then where they're trending. So once you get control of that, we can help you to find that best numbers window so you can apply and get the best rate and get the best level of insurance. Because sometimes I've heard that you can pay twice as much for the same amount of insurance just because you had one high blood pressure reading at your doctor's office.
Exactly, yes.
That's a lot of money to spend on one high blood pressure reading.
And just
So,
also think about, that money that is put towards that could be going towards your, generational wealth, towards your loved ones.
Oh, yeah, right. So if I wasn't spending that money on my life insurance policy, I could be putting that in the bank,
Hmm.
creating something that could really be lasting for my family. That's something to think about. So if someone is on here listening and thinking, this sounds like me, what's the next smart step that they should take?
Well, the first thing is going to be to understand that this isn't about rushing an application. So just getting applications sent in as fast as you can. It's more about being prepared and preparing wisely for sending that application. So understanding again, where are your levels right now? Where's your testing right now? And then if they are again out of range, just work on getting them within range before even sending in the initial application.
Okay. All right. Now, if you could leave people with one thought about their insurance, about their health and their legacy, what would that be?
Um, Well, one thing about the insurance and health and legacy is just understanding that it's not as difficult as you might think. We're not really educated on these things. So the best thing for you is to get education about yourself. Again, knowing where your levels are right now, where your health is right now, where it could be going, and just having that conversation with your physician or your medical team and get that in place. And then, of course, you want to make sure that when the time does come, you are ready to apply for insurance, that you are speaking with the right person, someone who can walk you through what to expect.
Okay. I love that because leaving a legacy is just it's not just about what you leave behind. It's about how prepared we are while we're here, while we have the use of our limbs and the ability to get a policy that's going to leave something behind for our families. Hey, Idris, I want to thank you so much for this education and for helping us to understand what it might look like and what we can do today to get ready, to be ready, and to stay ready to support our families, not just for this month, but for the long term and leave something that's going to be meaningful that they can really support themselves with. So thank you. Any final thoughts?
Yeah. So, going back to tied into what we were discussing today, this is something that is sorely needed. At some point in time, one of us, we're all going to exit this earth. So, are we really best prepared to leave? And to not only leave, but make sure that our family is taken care of. That's the whole point of having, life insurance in the first place. So for the people who are left behind, they're able to at least sustain their, life until they're able to, improve upon it themselves. So, and, not looking at it as something to fear, but, it's just something that you should be prepared for and be ready to, implement.
If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. But no man knows the day or the time. And bottom line is faith without works is dead.
Yeah.
So we have to do some things. Don't just pray about it. You got to be about it. And I want to thank you and your team for being here today and sharing this educational opportunity. And we will keep this conversation going. Anyone who's got questions, please reach out to me or to Idris, and we'll make sure we put you in the right hands so that you can take care of your family as well. All right. Thanks, everybody.